Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you're learning English, or really, any new language,
Mhm.
there's that moment. It's far scarier than any grammar quiz. It's the moment you have to open your mouth and actually speak. That internal block, the shyness, the fear, you'll just freeze.
It's a universal barrier, isn't it? I mean, we can all memorize vocabulary lists, we can understand the sentence structure on a page, but until we get over that psychological hurdle, all that knowledge just stays trapped. And that's what we're focusing on today, that whole emotional landscape.
Exactly. We are not looking at verb charts today. Our source material for this deep dive is this wonderfully honest and deeply personal account. It's from one speaker who really navigated that journey from being a nervous beginner, heart racing, voice shaking, to becoming a truly confident communicator in English.
And what's so remarkable about this account is that it basically provides a blueprint for a mindset shift. It's a map. It shows you how to move past that paralyzing terror, and understand that language is not just a set of rules. It's a tool for connection, a tool that opens doors to new jobs, new friends, a bigger world.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The mission here is to fundamentally shift how you see this challenge. We're moving away from seeing a mistake as a failure and starting to see it as, well, as undeniable proof of progress. And this shift, when you couple it with some simple, consistent daily habits, that's what builds real confidence. The source speaker, they describe their starting point as having a, racing heart, sweaty palms, before even saying a word. We want to lift you out of that feeling.
That emotional starting point is so real for so many people. And as the source material really points out, the first move isn't intellectual. It's an act of will. You have to decide to just be willing to try.
Which brings us right into the core psychological shift. The revelation from the source is simple, but it's just so transformative.
Yeah.
Speaking English isn't about being perfect. It's entirely about being brave.
That decision to be brave, that's the moment you get over the biggest hurdle. Most learners wait. They wait until they feel ready. But the source points out that this idea of being ready, it's a myth. It never actually arrives. You have to jump in while you still feel completely unprepared. The speaker admitted they were constantly haunted by that question. What if people judge me? What if they laugh?
But what did they find in reality? I mean, was it constant ridicule?
Oh, not at all. Far from it, actually. They talk about this one time, this one situation where they completely just fumbled asking for a train ticket, mixed up the destination, the time, everything. But instead of the impatient judgment they were dreading, the ticket clerk just slowed down, they smiled, and they patiently helped them sound out the words and fix a mistake. And that one experience just reframed everything. They realized the judgment was all internal. It was a monster they'd created. Most native speakers, they found, were actually kind and really appreciative of the effort.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Just cruise that internal bully that kept so many of us quiet. But for someone who's really shy, how do you bridge that gap? I mean, is just jump in maybe too simple when the fear feels so physical?
Yeah, it requires an active override of that fear, and that relies on changing your internal narrative. The speaker detailed this contrast, between their default thought, I can't do this, I sound foolish, and the intentional one they adopted. That new narrative was, I can learn this, and every time I speak, I get closer. It's that conscious choice to believe in your ability to learn, not just your current ability, that fuels the bravery you need.
And what about when you do make a mistake? How do you handle that self-correction?
Crucially, that kindness has to apply to yourself. The source speaker learned to immediately stop the internal critique when they stumbled. Instead of shame, they literally adopted the phrase, I'm learning and I'm getting better every single day. And that self-compassion is just. It's vital. It replaces that paralyzing shame with a kind of forward-moving resilience.
That idea of resilience flows perfectly into reframing mistakes. This is maybe the most counterintuitive part of the whole source material. The idea that mistakes aren't setbacks, they should be celebrated because they are definitive proof that you are trying.
Absolutely. Think of it as adopting a growth mindset. It's this psychological idea that, your abilities aren't fixed, they're skills you can improve with effort. And in language learning, if you aren't making mistakes, you probably aren't pushing your boundaries. Each error is just a piece of data. It shows you exactly what you need to work on next.
The source uses some brilliant metaphors to make this whole process feel more manageable. The first one is the baby and the muscle.
Right, which is just perfect because it connects the mental act of learning to something physical. Learning is step by step, just like a baby learning to walk
They fall all the time.
all the time, dozens of times. But nobody criticizes them for it. We cheer them on to get back up. You have to treat your own English efforts with that same patience.
And that ties right into the physicality of it. English as a muscle. If you just read and study silently, That muscle for speaking stays weak, but the more you actually speak, the stronger and faster it gets. The only way to strengthen it is to use it consistently.
hmm And then there's the tree and the swim. The tree analogy is all about consistency. You water it every day, and you can't see the growth from one day to the next. But over time, it's undeniable. It reminds us that consistency always beats intensity.
And the swimming one,
Hmm.
that just perfectly captures the initial terror. The speaker said they felt like they were staring into deep, cold water. But once you take that first step in, you get wet, you
Yeah.
might flounder a little bit,
Yeah.
but you find that the practice builds comfort, and suddenly the water doesn't seem so terrifying.
And ultimately, the source emphasized that the goal is communication. It's not, dictionary level precision. They realized they didn't need big, complicated words. Simple words delivered with confidence are more than enough to get your thoughts across. People will understand you. And that connection is so much more important than getting every grammar rule right.
Okay, this is where it gets really important for the long haul. Once you've accepted that mistakes are progress, you need a realistic strategy. The source uses this climbing a mountain metaphor, which I think is great because it addresses the fact that fluency doesn't just happen overnight.
That mountain analogy is fantastic. It directly tackles that feeling of hitting a plateau, of being stuck.
Um,
The speaker noted that, sometimes you study for months and you feel like you haven't really improved that much. And that feeling, that's the most dangerous point for your motivation.
That's the hill. When you're climbing a gently sloping hill, the view doesn't change much. It feels painstakingly slow. But you are still undeniably moving forward. And that reminder is so crucial. Even when learning feels slow, you are still building towards the top.
Right. And the way the speaker fought that feeling was by setting these incredibly small strategic goals. They realized that trying to master everything at once just leads to burnout. So instead, they'd set a focus for each day. So, like, Monday was for practicing one specific verb tense. Tuesday was just about improving the pronunciation of a couple of vowel sounds.
That micro-goal approach stops that overwhelming feeling of, I have to learn all of English today.
And we have to celebrate those achievements. The source really emphasizes celebrating the tiny victories.
They did. They spoke about the pride they felt the first time. They didn't just order food, but they successfully asked for a specific substitution and were understood. That's a small but complex win in a real-world setting. Every successful conversation, no matter how short, is an achievement you should be genuinely proud of.
We also need to remember the power of nonverbal communication. The speaker mentioned actively watching how native speakers use their hands, their faces, their voices. Because if the words fail you, the rest of your body can step in. Yeah, nonverbal communication is a fantastic emotional bridge. Smiling when you're happy, gesturing when you're searching for a word, it helps the other person connect with your meaning. It massively reduces the stress of the whole interaction. It's a good reminder that language isn't just words, it's an energetic connection.
Okay, let's get really concrete now and look at the daily toolkit from the source. These are low-effort, high-impact habits you can build right into your routine.
Consistency is absolutely key here. The first really powerful habit the speaker adopted was keeping a simple English journal every single night before bed.
But how does writing simple sentences help with speaking fluency? I mean, isn't that just grammar practice?
The goal isn't perfect grammar. The goal is to force your brain to process the day's events in English. The speaker would write just a few sentences, what they did, what they felt. And by doing that right before sleep, they practiced thinking in the language, and they got better at forming thoughts efficiently. They said their sentences naturally got better over a few weeks, moving from single thoughts to more complex ideas, just from 5 minutes a day.
And paired with that, they practiced reading aloud. Why isn't reading silent enough?
Well, reading silently is an intellectual act. Reading aloud is physical. It exercises the muscle memory for your tongue and your mouth to make these unfamiliar sounds. It gets your brain used to hearing your own voice speak English, which reduces that feeling of strangeness when you have to do it in public. It connects the visual word to the sound.
Okay, the second big habit is the one that feels the most awkward. But the source insists it is incredibly effective. The internal conversation, talking to yourself in English.
It might feel completely silly at first, I
Yeah.
get it, but this habit is revolutionary. The speaker practiced pretending to, narrate their life, describing things they saw on a walk, making mental to-do lists in English, asking and answering simple questions while, like, cleaning the kitchen.
And why does that work so well?
Because it's zero-stakes practice. There's no one there to judge you. You have a constant language partner, yourself. It completely removes the pressure and helps English flow from your brain without having to go through that filter of translation first. It just makes English feel more comfortable and natural because you're weaving it into the most mundane parts of your day.
And finally, there's immersion and, actual external practice.
Right. Surround yourself with English, music, movies, TV shows. But the source stressed active immersion. Don't just have it on in the background. If you watch a show, try to summarize the plot in your head afterwards, or even shadow what the characters are saying, repeat their lines. The brain picks up on those patterns faster than you realize.
And, crucially, finding friends or a group to practice with. The speaker sought out groups where everyone was a learner, so they could all laugh at their mistakes together. They also stressed that when you practice with native speakers, just remember they are generally kind and patient. They often admire the tremendous effort you're putting in.
Every correction isn't a criticism, it's a gift. It's a chance to learn something new. So as we kind of round the corner here, let's revisit the core motivation. What really stands out is this idea of English not just as a school subject, but as a path to a bigger future. The speaker shared how English totally changed their life. It helped them dream bigger, it opened doors to different careers, new friendships.
Right, it's described as a powerful bridge, a bridge connecting you to the world, allowing you to travel, meet new people, learn about cultures you could never access otherwise. It's a key that unlocks so many opportunities.
And that vision is what you have to hold on to when the journey feels slow or frustrating. The confidence you're building. It comes from that consistent practice and the simple willingness to just try. The source emphasized speaking with energy, even if your words are a little unsure, because people feel your energy. And that enthusiasm is what matters most for human connection.
And that magic moment the source shared just perfectly encapsulates this. They remember the day a tourist who looked really confused and stressed asked them for directions. And they didn't hesitate. They just spoke clearly, they used their hands, and they guided the tourists successfully. And the smile on that tourist's face when they realized they understood and were understood, that felt like pure magic. That's the realization that speaking English is fundamentally about connecting human to human. It's not about passing a test.
It was proof. Proof that all those small daily steps, the journals, the talking to themselves, had built up a resilience that allowed them to be effective when it really mattered.
So to synthesize all this,
Yeah.
we've established you have to make that emotional shift from fear to bravery. You have to recognize that mistakes are just proof that you're trying. You must speak to improve.
And we have the toolkit for that consistent, low-effort practice, the nightly journal for thinking in English, reading aloud to build that physical skill, and the internal conversation to make it all feel completely natural.
You've already taken the first and the hardest step just by committing to learn. So hold on to that vision of the bridge. And remember that even when you feel like you're moving slowly up that hill, you're still moving forward.
Remind yourself with kindness every single day. I'm learning and I'm getting better every day.
So what does this all really mean? The journey requires patience, it requires courage, but it is worth every single step. Because in the end, you aren't just learning a language, you are building a brighter, more connected future for yourself. Hold on to that feeling, because one day you'll look back at this moment of fear and say, I didn't just try, I did it.